Hello, welcome back to Rohmer Retrospective. We're on the third film now, another short film from 1963, Suzanne's Career. This one is about a guy called Bertrand, and I'm guessing there's going to be kind of a central theme in these Six Moral Tales movies, in that we have a girl who is kind of the central kind of figure of the film, that the male lead character is pining for, or has an interesting and complex thought process of, because you, again, much like the Bakery Girl of Monceau, we get the narration playing over the movie of the main character Bertrand and what he thinks about this girl in the film called Suzanne. And it's kind of a love triangle between Bertrand and his best friend and Suzanne, who they meet at the beginning of the film. This one's a lot lengthier than the short I talked about previously, which was about 20 minutes, something like that. This is about 50 odd minutes, so there's a lot more to chew on with this film. And so I enjoyed it a lot more because there was just more depth to it with the running time. And the main character, Bertrand, is a very shy and retiring kind of guy. You know, he doesn't really throw himself out there that much. There's another girl called Sophie who his friend is trying to hook him up with, and he's not really good at making moves. You know, he kind of just watches and observes and kind of goes along with his much more brash and forward friend, who is painted to be quite an unpleasant character, because he gets together with Suzanne fairly early on, and Bertrand gets to see Suzanne getting on with his friend and kind of being left on the sidelines and kind of carried along for the ride and being the third wheel, things like that. And Bertrand's friend, he really takes advantage of Suzanne, and eventually he ropes Bertrand into taking advantage of Suzanne as well. And I don't mean sexually, although that probably was the case with his friend, but when the two of them are taking advantage of her, what they're doing is they're just milking her for money, when they realize that she'll kind of just pay for them to go out for, you know, meals and to go and see movies and things. I think they go and see Lawrence of Arabia, which is quite funny. You get to see the poster, you know, David Lean epic and all that. So they kind of really abuse her her kind and generous nature, which is kind of hard to watch in a way, because I feel like the main character is designed to be Bertrand, but I really am more interested in Suzanne and how she kind of figures into the story from the beginning until the end. And what I really liked about this film was that Bertrand's friend, and I don't want to pronounce his name, that's why I just keep calling him the friend, but he, black and white, made out to be a bit of a prick. A guy who, you know, gets girlfriends and kind of takes advantage of them and then kind of just leaves them hanging for dry, basically. And Bertrand imagines himself as a much better person than that. And I love how we hear him in the narration talking about how he hates, you know, Suzanne. And then he clarifies that he knows he doesn't really hate her, but it makes him feel better to think that he hates her. And I think that's a really relatable thing. Again, maybe this is just me, but I think a lot of people go through things like that, where they're in a situation with someone and they're really frustrated with them. They know they don't hate them, but to make themselves feel better, they think, you know, oh, I hate them, you know. They don't really, but they're just trying to make themselves feel better to get this internal release, which doesn't work at all. And it's one of those kind of pitfalls of the human psyche that is explored a little bit in this film. And Bertrand ends up being kind of the same as his friend, if not worse, because he's doing the same kind of manipulative things, but he's doing them in a much more introspective way. He isn't doing the things that his friend is doing in an outward way, where he is kind of very bold and outspoken about how he'll take advantage of people, but he does it more kind of inside his head and kind of plays around with people a bit more. And by the end of the film, which is a really nice little scene where you kind of get a nice bit of closure on Suzanne and also Bertrand's kind of thought process of the whole experience of kind of having a relationship with her, both as a friend and as a partner. I think it wraps up really nicely. So overall, I loved this film. I really liked it. The Blu-ray looked really good, but I believe this was shot on 16mm. It doesn't look as good as the other ones I've seen so far. A little bit rough around the edges, but still, I just loved the look of the film, and I loved the just the where Rohmer shot these films. You know, I just like the surroundings, the scenery. And I read on the Wikipedia page that there's supposed to be this big historical kind of context to this film around the war and all of that, and I didn't get any of that whatsoever. So I don't know whether someone's just reading far too much into the film, or whether I'm misreading what they're kind of saying about it, or whoever put that on the Wikipedia page. I don't really get how that ties into the film too much, apart from the state of women in society in the early 60s in France, which I guess is something that could be looked into as far as Suzanne. She's someone who is very independent and lives on. I mean, Bertrand asks her, I think, or at least his friend asks her, like, do you live with your parents? She's like, no, I live by myself. And she has money, she has a job, she has these prospects. And Suzanne's career is an interesting title because I don't think it really refers to her literal career as far as a job, but more kind of her career of, you know, of being with these guys in a way, just like how she goes through this process of you know, dating this guy and then dating this other guy, and you know, going back and forth, and you're not quite sure whether she really likes this guy or that guy. The only thing I didn't like about the film was a very extended sequence where they do kind of a Ouija board thing without the board. They just all put their hands on this table and they kind of make it move, and the table rocks back and forth like once, you know, and they're trying to work out the letters. So instead of like pushing their fingers to a letter, if they had a Ouija board, the table rocks up and down. And it's like A, B, C, and it's so drawn out, and I got a little bit tired of it. But apart from that, I really like this, and yeah, I would highly recommend it if anyone likes Eric Rohmer's films. I mean, at this point, it's I really don't feel like anyone's going to be rushing out to buy this box set or to look into Eric Rohmer's films, but I'm enjoying talking about them at this point, and really enjoying going through them as well. So here's the front cover there of Suzanne, and on the inside we probably have an actual shot from the film. As you can see, the Blu-ray is still in my player. But yeah, I really like this one quite a lot. I'd rate it quite highly. I really like the style, I really do, and I'm glad that this transition from his first film, The Sign of Leo, to his actual films that he wrote and directed have more of a, well, not even more of a, they have the same kind of feel to me, you know, because again, I was reading reviews about The Sign of Leo, people say, oh, that's not Eric Rohmer, you know, wait till you get to his proper films that he wrote and directed, and that they're properly his films, but I don't see too much of, I mean, there is a difference, but as far as the kind of naturalistic feel that you get from his films, as far as the characters feeling real, and the relationships feeling real, and nothing feeling too contrived. You know, there's a scene where Suzanne comes back to Bertrand's room where he lives, and I just feel like in the hands of other filmmakers it might have turned into some kind of steamy love scene, and it just is this drawn out kind of awkward thing where he doesn't really make a move and just kind of goes to bed, and she just has to sit there. And I just really liked that, and I liked how something big happens, and it, again, in a normal movie would have blown up into this big dramatic thing, but the main character decides to just let it drop and kind of just let it spin around in his head more than coming out with it, and it felt true to the characters. And so that's how I really get into these films, because I feel like they're real people I'm watching. It's almost documentary-like in a way. So yeah, that's it. I think I really enjoyed this one. Looking forward to watching the next one, talking about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause